Hello and welcome to today's deep dive. I'm your host, and we've got a really fascinating one for you today.
I am your resident expert, and yeah, I am very excited to get into this one. It's a topic that's pretty much everywhere right now.
It really is. And I want to start us off today with a story about a woman named Sarah Chen.
Oh, right, the Sarah Chen case.
Yeah. And before you ask, no, she's not a tech billionaire or a startup founder or anything like that. She was the head of credit operations at a regional bank.
Just a normal corporate leadership role.
Exactly. And Sarah was, well, she was the kind of boss everyone actually wants to have. She built a 20-year career on being obsessively fair. She was transparent, accountable, and she was famous for staying late to double-check rejection letters.
Because she wanted to be absolutely sure the bank wasn't missing something, human in the numbers.
Right. She was the moral compass of the department, the anchor,
Hmm.
the person you go to when you're unsure about the right thing to do.
Which is exactly what you want in a credit department.
Exactly. But then the bank introduced a new system called Credit AI. And this wasn't just a digitized filing cabinet or a basic calculator. It was a sophisticated algorithmic tool designed to process loan applications alongside her human
He
team.
was supposed to be the ultimate efficiency unlock. That standard promise of let the machine handle the data and let the humans handle the nuance.
Right. And for the first few months, that's pretty much how it went. But about 6 months in, a file lands on Sarah's desk. It's a borderline applicant, a small business owner, tight margins, but a good history.
Okay.
The AI, however, flags it for immediate rejection. It cites this really complex pattern analysis of social media activity and cash flow volatility, so it's a hard no from the machine.
Efficiency in action right there.
Right, but here's the twist. Sarah's human analyst, a guy she trusts, implicitly flags the exact same file. He comes to her and says, Sarah, look at this. The AI is misinterpreting community organizing photos as political instability. And that cash flow dip, they closed for a week to renovate. This looks like algorithmic bias. We should approve this.
So she is standing at the classic crossroads. You have the human instinct and context on one side and the cold, hard machine probability on the other.
Exactly. Now, in the past, Sarah, this champion of fairness, she would have dug her heels in. She would have sided with the human context. But this time,
She didn't.
she didn't. She stared at the screen, watched the cursor blink, and she actually found herself thinking, well, the AI is optimizing for long-term portfolio accuracy. It follows different rules. It has a bigger data set than I do.
Different context, different standards.
Yes. She told herself it was a valid alternative context, and she signed off on the rejection.
And that moment right there, that specific rationalization of different contexts, different standards, that is the smoking gun of what we're talking about today.
Because it didn't feel like a catastrophe to her at the time. It just felt like efficiency.
Yeah.
But that subtle shift is what we are unpacking in this deep dive. It wasn't that Sarah became a bad person overnight. It's that she fell victim to a psychological phenomenon that researchers are now calling moral drift.
Moral drift, it sounds so gentle, doesn't it?
Yeah, it really does.
Like you're just floating down a lazy river. But the implications are actually terrifying for anyone in a leadership position. We're talking about a fundamental erosion of ethical capacity.
To understand what broke in Sarah's decision-making process, and honestly, what is likely breaking in organizations all over the world right now, we're diving into a really fascinating paper. It's titled Moral Drift in Human AI Leadership Frameworks by Jonathan H. Westover, Ph.D.
It's a brilliant piece of research.
It is. And I want to be super clear right off the bat for everyone listening. This is not a tech support deep dive. We aren't going to tell you how to prompt ChatGPT better or how to deploy a new software.
No, absolutely not. We aren't talking about how to use AI tools. We are talking about what happens to your brain and your ethics when you have to manage AI as if it were a team member.
I want to push on that distinction a bit because it feels really important. Most of us, myself included, think of AI as just a tool. I use an AI to draft an email or use GPS to find a route to a restaurant. I don't feel like my morals are drifting when I use Google Maps.
Right.
So why is this different?
That's the vital question. Westover distinguishes between digital leadership and human AI collaboration management.
Oh,
When you use an AI to write an email, you are the pilot. The AI is just a fancy instrument on your dashboard. You have full agency. It's just executing your commands.
so that's the digital leadership part, the tool model.
Exactly. But what happened to Sarah and what is happening at huge companies right now is collaboration management. In this scenario, the AI functions as a distinct agent. It has a voice. Think about a radiologist. They look at an X-ray and see clean lungs. The AI looks at the exact same image and says, 90% probability of a tumor. The AI isn't just a tool anymore, it's a dissenting opinion.
Wow.
It's a team member that you, the human leader, actually have to argue with.
I see. So it's not me using a hammer, it's me working with a partner who holds the nail, but also has a very strong opinion on where the nail should go.
And not just an opinion, it's an opinion backed by billions of data points that you cannot see.
Which is intimidating.
Very. It creates a power dynamic that a hammer just doesn't have. And the scale of this is exploding. We aren't just talking about a few Silicon Valley tech companies experimenting.
Right, the paper mentions some massive numbers.
Huge numbers. JP Morgan is investing $18 billion in this. Best Buy is training 30,000 employees to work alongside AI product advisors. This isn't the future, it's becoming the norm right now.
Okay, so we've established that the AI is a teammate in these scenarios. But why does listening to a smart algorithm make me less ethical? If the AI provides better data, shouldn't that theoretically make my decisions more fair? More just?
Ideally, yes. In a perfect world, better data means better decisions. But the problem isn't the data itself. The problem is the conflict between value systems. Westover calls this moral code multiplicity.
Moral code multiplicity, which sounds like a very academic way of saying we're trying to play two different board games at the exact same time.
That is essentially it. Think about your human code. If you and I are making a hiring decision or loan decision like Sarah, we prioritize things like procedural justice, empathy, and accountability.
Right. We ask, is this fair?
Exactly. We ask, can I explain why we said no to this person's face? Did we treat them with dignity?
The how matters just as much as the what. We care about the human story behind the numbers.
Precisely. Now look at the AI code. The AI is strictly utilitarian. It prioritizes statistical parity, outcome optimization, and pattern recognition. It does not care why the pattern exists.
Like the small business in the story. It doesn't care about the renovation explanation for the cash flow dip.
Not at all. It only cares that the math historically predicts a default.
So the human says, this feels wrong because of the context, and the AI says, the numbers are right, ignore the context.
And the leader is stuck right in the middle, constantly code switching between the two. 1 minute you're applying human empathy, the next minute you're validating cold algorithmic logic.
Man, that sounds exhausting.
It is. And what Westover found is that when leaders do this constantly, hundreds of times a week, they start to believe that ethics are situational.
That's the drift.
Yes. They start thinking, well, are we in human mode or machine mode right now? You stop having a universal North Star for what is right, and you start navigating based on which system is shouting the loudest, or honestly, which one is easier to agree with in the moment.
Which brings us right back to Sarah Chen. Different contexts, different standards. She compartmentalized her ethics to fit the tool.
Exactly. She untethered herself from her core values to accommodate the machine's logic.
Okay, but I have to play devil's advocate here for a second. Is this just a philosophical problem?
How do you mean?
Well, if I'm a shareholder or even a customer, do I really care if a leader feels a bit philosophically confused as long as the business runs well? Does this moral drift actually lead to bad behavior? Or is it just a headache for middle management?
That is the crucial question. And the data here is honestly the absolute aha moment of the entire paper. Westover didn't just theorize about philosophy, he looked at the hard numbers. He compared leaders managing these hybrid human AI teams against leaders managing purely human teams.
And what did he find?
The hybrid leaders showed 15 to 23% higher scores on moral relativism.
Wow.
Meaning they were statistically much more likely to say, it depends, when they were asked about ethical hard lines.
Okay, so they are measurably more flexible with their morals. But does that translate to real-world action?
It absolutely does. That flexibility predicts a 38% increase in unethical conduct.
Wait, nearly 40%?
Yes, 38%. We are talking about cutting corners, concealing information from stakeholders, misleading clients about how a decision was made, or even faking compliance data.
That is massive. That's not just confusion. That is a direct line to corporate corruption.
It is, and it's so important to understand, and Westover stresses this, these aren't villains. They aren't waking up in the morning planning to defraud anyone. They are drifting. They are suffering from what the paper calls decision fatigue amplification.
Decision fatigue amplification. I feel that term in my bones just reading my emails. But this is specific to managing the AI, right?
Right. Imagine every single decision you make requires a meta judgment first. Which framework do I apply here? The human one or the machine one? It just burns through your cognitive fuel.
I can imagine.
There was this quote from a manager in the study who said, "I lose sleep over these calls in a way I didn't before."
Oh, wow.
Yeah. They said, "I feel like I'm constantly negotiating a peace treaty between my gut and the data."
And when you're that tired, when you're losing sleep, you just take the path of least resistance, which is usually just agreeing with the machine so you can move on.
Exactly. And it leads to a bit of an identity crisis, too.
How so?
Well, if the AI is faster, smarter, and allegedly more accurate, at some point the human leader starts asking, why am I even here? Am I just the rubber stamp?
Right. Am I just a signature on a page to take the legal liability?
That feeling of being devalued leads to deep disengagement. And when you disengage, your ethical vigilance drops off a cliff because you simply stop caring as much.
So we have a crisis of ethics, a crisis of fatigue, and a crisis of identity.
The perfect storm.
Truly. Now, if I were a CEO looking at this landscape, chaos, ambiguity, conflicting systems, my gut instinct would be to hire leaders who are super adaptable. I'd want people who are flexible, open-minded, comfortable with the gray areas of business.
That would be the intuitive choice. You'd look for agile leaders. But according to Westover's research, you would be making a grave mistake.
Really. Because rigid is usually a dirty word in management.
Yeah.
We're always told we need to be flexible and pivot.
In a normal environment, yes, flexibility is great. But this was the most counterintuitive finding in the entire paper. The leaders who resisted moral drift, the ones who stayed ethical and kept their teams honest, were those with a high need for cognitive closure.
Need for cognitive closure. So those are usually the people we call stubborn, right? The
Yeah.
ones who like black and white rules and hate ambiguity.
Correct. Usually we think of that trait as a weakness, someone who can't handle complexity. But in this specific context of human-AI collaboration, that stubbornness actually acts as a protective shield.
How does that work? I would think a rigid person would just fight with the AI all day and get absolutely nothing done.
Well, think about the mechanism of the drift we just talked about. The drift happens because you allow your ethics to become situational. It depends on the context.
Right.
The leader with a high need for closure refuses to play that game. When they see the conflict between the human and the AI, they don't say, well, let's float in the gray area and see. They say, no, we need a rule for this. We need to define which one is right based on our principles.
So they force clarity where there is chaos.
Exactly. The adaptable leader says, the AI says X, my gut says Y, let's compromise. That's the slippery slope.
The drift.
Yes. But the high closure leader says, the AI says X, but it violates principle A of our company charter, so we are tossing the AI's opinion out. End of discussion. They stick to the code.
That makes so much sense when you put it that way. The adaptable leader bends until they break, but the rigid leader anchors the whole team.
Leaders with high ambiguity tolerance are actually way more likely to drift because they're too comfortable with the inconsistencies. They don't feel the urgent need to resolve the ethical conflict, so they just let it fester.
Okay, but we can't just fire everyone and hire a bunch of stubborn rule followers. That comes with its own massive set of problems for innovation. Organizations need to fix this systemically.
Absolutely.
The source material highlighted 3 specific protocols, real-world case studies that seem to actually stop the drift. I want to walk through these because they felt very practical for anyone listening.
They are very practical. These aren't just academic theories. These are interventions that actually worked in the field. Let's look at the Mayo Clinic example first.
This was the tiered decision protocol.
Right. So the problem at Mayo was that radiologists were terrified of overruling the AI diagnostics.
Makes sense. Stakes are life and death.
Exactly. If the AI says cancer and you say no cancer and you turn out to be wrong, that is a career-ending, potentially fatal mistake. But if you just agree with the AI and it's wrong, well, you can just blame the machine.
So the incentive structure literally pushed them to be rubber stamps.
Yeah.
It was safer to just nod along.
Precisely. So Mayo implemented a tiered system to fix this. Level 1. If the human and the AI agree, great. Automatic processing, high efficiency, everyone is happy.
Simple enough.
But level 2 and 3 are where the magic happens. If there is a disagreement, the radiologist isn't allowed to just flip a coin or quietly agree out of fear. They are required to document specific clinical reasoning.
Oh, wow.
They have to write down exactly why they are overruling the machine.
So it gives them permission to pause.
It gives them permission, but it also forces them to articulate the human code. It validates that their human judgment is a necessary part of the workflow, not just an obstruction to efficiency.
And did it work?
It did. The result was a 35% reduction in decision stress. It turned the conflict from a personal crisis into a structured process.
Oh, I love that. It takes the emotion out of it. It's not man versus machine anymore. It's just a procedure for disagreement.
Precisely.
Okay, the second example was Unilever regarding hiring. This one felt really relevant to the Sarah Chen story we started with.
Very relevant. Unilever managers were using AI to screen job candidates, but they started feeling this deep moral uncertainty. They were rejecting people based on a black box score that they couldn't even explain.
Which feels terrible. You're affecting someone's livelihood based on a number you don't understand. And that creates that disconnect. If I can't explain it, I'm not responsible for it.
Right. So Unilever implemented a transparency mandate. They didn't just tell managers, hey, be more ethical. They changed the actual workflow. Any communication about a hiring decision, whether internal or external, had to specify what drove it, human or AI, and why.
So you couldn't just hide behind the algorithm anymore.
You had to own it. If the AI made the call, you had to explain the criteria. For example, the system flagged a lack of required certification.
Right.
But if you made the call, you had to explain your principle. This forced managers to articulate their values every single time they hit reject.
And what was the outcome there?
Applicant concerns about unfairness dropped by 45%.
That is huge. Almost half. And it probably made the managers feel a lot better too, because they weren't just guessing anymore. They were accountable again.
It anchored them. You cannot drift when you have to write your reasoning down and sign your name to it.
That's a great point. Now, the third example was from JP Chase, and this addressed the loneliness aspect we talked about earlier, the support network.
This is actually my favorite intervention because it acknowledges the psychological toll this takes on people. Leaders felt isolated. It is lonely when you're the only human in the room deciding whether to trust the robot with millions of dollars.
Yeah, that's a heavy burden.
So JP Morgan created AI ethics partners.
No, was this like the ethics police coming to audit you if you made a mistake? Because that sounds stressful.
No, and that is key. These were embedded consultants, not auditors, not police. If a leader was struggling with a dilemma, they could just call a partner and talk it through.
Oh, there you
Say,
go.
here's what the AI says, here's what my gut says, help me think this through.
It's like therapy for algorithmic leadership.
In a way, yes. And it worked. It reduced critical escalations by 30% because leaders felt supported. They felt capable of making the hard calls because they weren't alone in the dark.
These are all such practical solutions: structure, transparency, support. But Westover argues in the paper that there's an even bigger shift needed, a total redefinition of what we actually pay leaders to do. The paper calls it psychological contract recalibration.
A bit of a mouthful of a phrase, but it's a vital concept for the future of work.
So what does that actually look like in a job description? Because right now, most leaders are paid to be fast and accurate.
And that is the trap. For the last 100 years, a good leader was often defined by efficiency. I can process data and make decisions faster than you. But in 2026, if your primary value proposition is speed, you are obsolete.
Because the AI is always going to be faster.
Always.
So if I'm not being paid to be fast, what am I being paid for?
Integration quality. Organizations need to explicitly redefine the job. You are being paid to weave the human and the machine together effectively. Westover argues leaders should be rewarded for 3 new things: ethical consistency, contextual judgment, and stakeholder trust.
Let's break those down. Ethical consistency.
Right.
That's spotting where the AI is biased, like Sarah Chen should have done.
Exactly. Spotting when the machine is technically right according to its training, but morally wrong according to our values.
And contextual judgment.
That's knowing when the pattern doesn't apply. Knowing that the dip in sales wasn't a bad business strategy, but a flood in the local warehouse. The AI misses the flood, the human catches it.
Right. And the third one, stakeholder trust.
Can you explain the black box to a human client in a way that makes them feel heard and respected? Can you look a customer in the eye and explain the decision? That is a purely human skill.
I really like that. It shifts the leader from being a doer to being a steward.
Data and algorithmic stewardship. That's the exact term the source uses. You don't need to be a coder. You don't need to know how to build a neural network. But You absolutely must understand its failure modes. You need to know what a confidence score is.
The paper used a really great analogy about a guard dog for this.
Yes, you need to be the guardian who knows when the dog is barking at a burglar and when it's just barking at a squirrel.
That is fantastic, because if you treat every bark as a burglar, you're panicked and inefficient all day. But if you ignore every bark, you get robbed.
Precisely. And the AI can never tell you which is which. It just barks. It processes the signal, but only the human can understand the context of the noise, that discernment. That is the human value.
So let's bring this all together for the listener. We're moving into a hybrid world. That train has completely left the station.
Oh, it's gone. It's halfway down the track.
And without guardrails, this clash between human logic and machine logic creates this moral drift. We start sliding into situational ethics. But the fix isn't to just ban the AI.
No. The fix is more structure, clearer values, and a complete redefinition of what human leadership actually looks like. We need to be more intentional, not less.
It's empowering, actually, when you think about it. It says that the more technology we have, the more we need strong human character. We need to double down on our humanity.
Absolutely. The machine forces us to be better humans if we let it.
So as we wrap up this deep dive, where does this leave us? What is the one thing you want the listener to walk away thinking about today?
We spend billions of dollars and endless hours trying to train AI models to be more human-like. We want them to chat like us, create art like us, reason like us. But looking at this research, I think we are ignoring the much bigger risk.
Which is?
The danger isn't that machines become human. The danger is that we are training our leaders to be more machine-like. By forcing them to constantly optimize, to prioritize efficiency over ethics, to bow to the algorithm, we risk hollowing out the very thing that makes human leadership valuable. So the real question for you listening is this. In your organization, are you using AI to enhance your humanity, or are you slowly letting the algorithm rewrite your moral code? How do you ensure your human judgment remains truly human?
That is something I am definitely going to be mulling over tonight. Thank you so much for exploring this with us.
My pleasure. It's a great conversation.
And thank you all for listening. We will catch you on the next Deep Dive.